What does no one is too busy to be curious mean to you?
The more life you live, the more there is to unpack. The longer you walk on the journey, the more there is to look back. You like it? I just gave it
I like
a
that.
thought. Good.
I it's amazing. Yeah, I read this on your post, LinkedIn post few weeks back, in which you spoke about reaching out to founders, reaching out to CEOs, and growing your network from and going from knowing pretty much no one in
Yep.
the business world onto, I mean, now you're a CEO and founder of Othello, which is just went through pre-seed. You're starting a new funding round, I believe, sometime soon. And I thought it was a pretty cool story about how you began to grow your network. I would love to speak a little bit more about that. Maybe you can tell us a bit about your strategy into how you've increased the amount of people you know and
Of
relevant
course, for
connections as
sure.
well.
Um, so you and I have known each other for a few years, and I think you've understood that I've always wanted to build something on my own. It was an ambition that I had like long before I was in college, long before my first job. What I quickly realized is it's very easy to fall down this trap of incremental growth. Job out of college, get promoted, maybe lateral, maybe another job. Eventually, you reach the point where you can then, you're qualified to build something solo or with a team. I don't really believe in incremental growth. I don't want to, walk that long staircase. So what I did is I said, okay, how can I skip the line? Like any good New Yorker, any good like kid from the Upper East Side, I'm saying to myself, how can I cut this line? And the best way to do that is by knowing the people, knowing the bouncers, right? You know the bouncers, you can get into the club. And in this case, the bouncers are the CEOs or the investors. They're the people that would accomplish what you want to accomplish. So I went straight to them and I built those relationships early on.
That makes sense. I think it's easy to fall into the trap of going for the
Yeah.
incremental, little by little growth. And now that you say it, I think about this idea. I don't know if you're acquainted with it. It's called the region
Yes.
beta paradox.
Bring it.
No? So I'll explain it very fast. It's this basically idea on which, based on where you want to go and how far that is, you take a different vehicle. So, very easy to grasp way to think about it is Madrid. You're going to a restaurant that's 700 meters away, you walk. If you're going to a restaurant that's
Mhm.
5 kilometers away, you take a cab. What ends up happening that you arrive to the restaurant that's 5 kilometers away faster than to the restaurant you were 700 meters away from. Now, taking that from the physical world to the space
Very.
that you're just
Yeah.
speaking about, which is skipping the line, is you thought about the vehicle, the not physical, but
I thought about the destination and the path that I could take to get there. I mean, it applies 100%. It applies. I remember growing up, there was one of my best friends, a kid named Bo. He would live across the street from school, like literally directly across the street from school. Yet he was always like late to school every single day. And I love him, right? I'm going to send him this video so you can like listen to this clip and he'll laugh at me. But it's the same thing, right? It's everything is relative. And just because the achievement is massive doesn't mean you can't achieve it. You just need to take a different vehicle to get there, for sure.
yeah, it's like if I put a gun to your head and I tell you, Jared, you need to make 100K this year. 2 years ago, when you just graduated from uni, easiest path to do that is find a job, nine to
Yep.
five, maybe 9 to 7. You're gonna get the 100K. But if I put the same gun to your head and I tell you, Jared, you need to make $1 million this year, you would still manage to do it because it's a life or death situation. You're just not gonna get a job. You're gonna go and figure out a
100%.
different way to do
So
it.
when you think about something like that, you have to think about the opportunity cost, right? So for me, the opportunity cost of not building my own business was practically zero. I had trouble getting a job that I truly enjoyed. I had a lot of good opportunities from like a monetary angle, but there was nothing I loved doing, right? So for me, the decision was actually really easy.
And when you speak about opportunity cost, this is a thought that I've been having the past 2 months. It's been on my head constantly. I think we're in a day and age in which the opportunity cost we have from being still, so not doing something, is higher than ever before. Because if you think about it, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, even 20 or 5 years ago, spending a Sunday lying in bed hungover,
Yeah.
you were not missing out on much in terms of those 8 hours of the day that you were not productive. Were It was all right. But nowadays, with the vehicles, again, to speak about vehicles, the vehicles available to people, with one person can basically build a startup that would have needed
For sure.
50 people 5 years ago. Um, so yeah, that's very interesting. And speaking about the startup, I would love also to talk about Othello and what you're trying to build. I'm relatively acquainted with it. We've spoken shallowly about it, and I think you have a pretty cool purpose and super interesting product. So maybe you can give the
Of
listeners
course.
somewhat of an insight into what it is Othello is and
Of
what you're
course. Yeah.
trying to
So to
achieve with it.
baseline, we looked after a problem that one, I was suited to solve, something that I knew that I was able to build, something that affected me personally, something that I was passionate about, right? And actually like said, hey, if I could solve this problem, it would make my life better. So we used that as a criteria as we were building Othello, right? To identify the problem that was worth us solving. Secondly, we looked at a problem that people felt, not just us, right? Something that was like truly hurting large businesses, affecting their balance sheets, income statements, and so on. We realized that the largest opportunity that fit both of those, like, think about the Venn diagram, like that fit right in the middle there, was the inconsistency of sales conversations, especially for large organizations with wide products. Think of it like this. Say you work for IBM. You have over 1 million different product SKUs that you're selling. These are generalists that are selling hundreds of different products. They have a ton of tools that help them with outbound, with prospecting, with recording sales conversations. There are no tools that help them during the conversation itself. So if you're in a call like this, a video call or a phone call, there's absolutely nothing available that can help you say the right thing during the meeting. And as a result, people really stink at sales conversations on average. It's a really, really hard job. You're a seller. The average person going into the job is not good at that on day one. So what we're able to, yeah, it takes a while. So we're effectively building this agentic sales force. We're building the first AI agent that can listen to sales conversations and provide in-call suggestions to the seller so they say the right thing during the call.
Makes a lot of sense. I think one of the insights you shared with me was that it takes a normal salesperson 14 months to ramp up to be
Yep.
relatively good at the job. And that's something that I've definitely been seeing. Of course, there's some unicorns that do it faster. But I think many of the people that are doing sales jobs are people that are
Yep.
just stepping into it to learn the systems. And it's not that their passion for life is doing sales. So it ends up happening that you have a person that could potentially be a good salesman or saleswoman. It takes them 14 months to ramp up. By the time they're skilled enough to hold a sales conversation properly, they're maybe 5 months away
And
from quitting
that's
their job
actual like
and
average
going
case
elsewhere.
scenario. There are many scenarios that are far worse than that, right? Like, so it is the most important, the account executive specifically is the most important job in an organization from a revenue perspective. For most companies, the AE generates the vast majority of their revenue, but it's also the largest cost center in that 50% of the life of an AE is effectively wasted. Like, it's effectively written off as negative on the balance sheet, right? So if we can effectively shorten that ramp up period or simply make the bottom 80% more like the top 20% of sellers, that's a massive outcome for these companies. But this is not like a new concept. Like, this is, I mean, obviously you want to do that, right? Our approach that's different is we've had a technical breakthrough that allows us to do this in real time during conversations. So we can now get reps to say the right thing at the right time, right? And right now we're augmenting these sellers. We're giving them the opportunity to be the best versions of themselves. And the outcome is, frankly, less people are losing jobs, right? More people are hitting quota. People are making more money for the company and for themselves using our product, right? So what we've seen is this very unique snap where sellers, for the first time really in their lives, are asking for more software tools. Salespeople do not like enablement. They do not like tools generally. What we're seeing the outcome for them is so clear
Yeah.
that they're requesting us, and some people are actually paying for us on their own. When the company, like, for example, if the company's slow, they'll buy it themselves.
And that's because AI's, so the products are finally worth using
Yeah, because
thanks to AI.
most
Not
enablement is
only
reactive, right? So like most enablement currently, most sales tools are reactive. Like something happens and then you get coaching on it. Something happens and then you do role play. Then you look at analytics, then you get data in the CRM. But it's incumbent upon you to do something with that. These systems of record are going in the window, and systems of action, something that will actually take the action for you. That's probably the next decade of enterprise software.
and on this space, I think you have a lot of players right now. So I'm very acquainted with the AI space. So I
Mm-hmm.
speak with a lot of founders very frequently, and I see tools coming up and popping up for everything. Uh, but I think they're all trying to solve something very genuinely. And something that I've noticed is I spoke to it a little bit beforehand, which is the teams are getting
Yep.
increasingly smaller and smaller. Mm, why do you think that is?
I think there's a few reasons for that. One being that, and there is some confirmation bias here, but when a company goes from 0 to 10 million ARR in 6 months, which is happening more commonly now than ever before, they simply don't have time to hire more employees. Like it's like it is actually very hard to hire a shit ton of employees quickly, especially if you're doing some. Of
Also,
course,
good
yeah, and
employees.
especially if you're doing something innovative, right? If it's a real estate company and it's just like super horizontal, that's fine, right? But if you're building something like very niche, it's very challenging to get qualified employees and onboard them quickly. So that's just like one like very simple, I'd argue, unrelated to AI reason why that's happening. A second being, I mean, our CTO has two computers right now, and he's working simultaneously on two different like features in our product set, like with two different computers. He's doing double the work of a regular person would, and probably I'd argue better than two people would do as well. This is obviously not like that common. Like I don't think every like engineer in Silicon Valley is doing that, but many of them are, right? If they're not doing that, they still have Codex or like Claude Code writing 80% of their code base for them, which I think has a ton of problems. But like for simple applications and simple tasks, that's pretty simple. And like, I think it's feasible to do. I do think it's going to get, I think it's going to happen gradually, actually. I don't think it's going to happen as quick. Like, I don't think you're going to fully automate the software engineer, but then it'll happen suddenly in a couple of years.
We see many companies go back, like Google, Meta, rehiring software engineers all of a sudden because they had massive firing sprees maybe 1 or 2 years ago, and now they're going back on their
Like,
decision to do so.
it's because they're more productive
Uh,
now. Like if you can get every employee to perform like a 10x engineer, you're not going to cut engineers. You're going to hire more engineers. Yeah.
I had never thought about it that way. You just develop product 100 times faster because you hire 10 times more engineers, each one of them being able to produce 10 times the output. And instead of leaving a bunch of business to startups like
Yeah.
yours, you develop all the tools in-house. Is that a fear for you? Is that a fear for you that eventually Zoom releases a feature that would make Othello AI basically
It's a great question.
have no
I
business?
think that's a fear that everybody has, whether they admit it or not. It's definitely not Zoom to do it, mainly because, frankly, this product doesn't work unless you could do it like, vendor agnostic. You could do it across any video conferencing platform. So that's not really the fear. Um, but look, that's always possible, right? There's always an opportunity for another company to say, hey, we're going to throw $20 million or 50, $100 million to build your building. But you have to think about the decision matrix they have, right? If you have a niche enough and deep enough solution like what we have, our product, it may appear simple because we have it in a really cute little UI. It's extremely challenging to build, like extremely deep and niche and narrow. We have a data advantage as well, which is helpful, but that in and of itself is not a world changing moat today. But if another company were to think about like, hey, let's spend $50 million to copy Othello, they're also going to think about just spending $40 million to buy Othello. And I think what you're going to see is just a
Yep.
ton of either acquisition like micro acquisition specifically in the next like couple of years. And people think that's bullshit because they think they'll just go and build it, but it still takes money to build and it's still a lot cheaper to buy
That makes sense. What is, in that case, your
with the fellow.
biggest fear as a founder?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your second company. So I think you learned a lot probably from the first one, which is something I
Yeah.
also want to delve into. But I think in the era of AI, we all have fears, not only founders, but also regular employees like myself. What would you say is your biggest concern relating AI and the place the world's going?
I think AI will be great for the economy. I think AI is going to make every individual more productive. So you're just going to hire more people. I think demand will go up for hiring, actually.
Do you think every individual
I
or
think
some individuals?
some, right? I mean, like there's always going to be job loss, right? But I think there's going to be like net, right? Like overall more hiring than not. I think the Industrial Revolution is a fantastic example, right? Once like the Whitney Cotton engine was created, right? That rendered a ton of, I don't know if you'd even call them jobs, but like tasks obsolete. I don't know if you call them jobs, but it rendered a lot of tasks obsolete. But new ones were created. Same thing with the factory. Same thing when like the steel mills were developed. Like there's always like change in job. I don't think anyone really disagrees with that. It's not a controversial opinion. I think it's how quickly the change happens. That could be a shock to the system. Um, I actually don't think that's going to be a problem. I think the main issues of AI will arise from a social perspective. I think people need work. I think people's self-worth is determined by work. I think people with nothing to do become depressed, become lonely, become self-conscious, become, in the most extreme cases, like lonely to the point of suicide. And that's why you see that, by the way, in like really effed up places like, for example, Greenland, where there's just nothing going on. Um, we're going to need to figure out a way to give people purpose in life outside of jobs. Um, because even the jobs that that's going to be the
That's a
challenge. I mean,
challenge.
Elon says the same thing, right? Like robotics will replace a ton of jobs. I think other jobs will be created, but I think there are going to be some people that are rendered obsolete.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking onto the side of so is that your biggest fear
Yeah, so
relating
like that's a big
AI?
one. I mean, another one is like what's like it's these visual models that you see like Grok Imagine, for example, or like Nano Banana. These scare me because they open up the aperture for like parasocial relationships where it's very realistic to the point where you can become like you feel like an emotional connection to some of these AI like chatbots or these AI characters. I don't, but I know for a fact there are millions of people that currently do, and it's trending that direction. Like think of it like this: like people used to have like these like virtual girlfriends, these girls they never met, for example, right? Like guys that aren't so great with women growing up, right? They'll maybe like meet like like they'll go on OnlyFans, they'll have this like parasocial relationship with this like person in like, I don't know, maybe like Russia or something like that. Okay. Very expensive, unscalable, and also low quality experience. Imagine there was an AI. This is
This
years. I
was
mean, this has
years
been going
ago.
on for 20 years since the internet was born, right? This
Well,
is
yeah, but even more recently
Yeah,
with
but it's going to become
OnlyFans.
endemic. Like the need has always been there. People are extremely lonely, right? If you can create an AI to give people like warmth and support and love, like, I mean, I think all people deserve that. It's just really sad that it's going to become so good that's going to replace the need to go and do it on a human level. I think like birth rates are going to collapse.
That's what I'm scared about. Birth rates. And I am scared about in terms of AI, but it's been a shift that's been going on for years now. I just think AI might be the last
Yeah, and
domino
it's
to
not just
fall.
in America, by the way. It's practically
Um,
every Western country has collapsing birth rates.
in Colombia, we have it, which you would not think about it. I didn't know about it until recently, and it's bad. We're well under replacement.
It's a symptom of a wealthy nation. So if you look at wealthy nations, even in like ancient times, right? Even like Rome at its wealthiest points, even in Persia at its wealthiest points at places, the wealthier a country gets, and nowadays the more Western it gets, the less kids you end up having. Um, which is obviously this like self fulfilling like revolution, where like, okay, you become a shitty country, you have more kids, you become a wealthy country, you have less kids, you become a shitty country, right? We're unfortunately like at the point where every
Yeah.
country may be a wealthy country because we can have AI automate a lot of the hard stuff. And if every country is a wealthy country, then every country will become a shitty country eventually.
Or they won't. And if they don't, then
But
they
that's what
don't
I'm
have
saying.
children
If you don't have kids, for
again.
example, if you don't have like a need to go and work, you become a welfare state with a dying population, your country collapses. Like that's the limit. Like that is this like the civilization limit. And I actually do believe that unless there is some kind of like massive shock to the system, that will happen, and we will collapse from within.
And that's the trend. If you see South Korea, I don't know if you've heard the stats. In South Korea, in 3 generations, for every 100 great grandparents, you're going to
It's
have
insane.
6 people. It's a 94% population
Yeah,
diminishment.
the Elon
And
hypothesis, and that's like yeah, it's gonna kill countries.
and then also if you begin to think about it in terms of the systems are not built for less
Like what?
people. So just from an economics perspective, you begin to think about um,
Yeah,
pension funds. You
healthcare
begin
system.
to think about, but not even only healthcare system. No, there's not going to be enough people to take care of all of the old people, and that's only one of the issues that you're going to begin to see pretty soon now. An additional one is just general systems are not supposed to. Why do we have big cities if there's not people to populate them? And then you begin to see in Italy governments subsidize housing at buy a house for €1 because there's really no one in that town, and then everyone begins to move into the big cities. But then eventually that's going to begin to
Yeah,
creep into the big cities as well,
yeah. It's the
and then
speed
we're
at which
fucked.
these things happen that actually have an influence, unless it's not cyclical and we're actually hitting, yeah, as you said, the last domino.
Yeah. Now coming back to Cicero, Othello, tell me about the founder's journey. So you said that you always knew you wanted to build something of your
Yeah, of
own.
course.
What would you say? I'm very curious because if I was to decide to build something of my own in the tech space nowadays, I pretty much don't know where I would start. How did you come to begin 2 years ago with Cicero? What were your learnings of your first startup, and how did that make Othello more
Yeah.
likely to
So about a year or
succeed?
so ago, I had this thesis that AI models, specifically like image models, were going to develop at faster paces, pretty much at exponential growth, like exponential quality growth for vision models, things like, which I mean, Sora didn't even exist a year and a half ago, but I predicted that that was going to be the next wave of like true AI innovation. So I said, okay, how can I monetize that? How can I do something now that sounds stupid, but in a year and a half could sound genius? What I realized is the new form of media will be creative generative AI. Even 6 months ago, if you said that, people would scoff at you. Now, I think the majority believes it. And the underpinnings of media come from intellectual property, which is why Disney's done so well. So what I did was I went around to the most famous podcasters, thought leaders, authors, celebrities in the world. I said, I'm going to create um, effectively AI assets for you, call it an AI chatbot, maybe like an AI clone. It could be some AI newsletter using your IP. But in return, you're going to provide me with exclusive rights to your IPs that nobody else but Jared Zelman can create with it. To them, that made a lot of sense. They're pretty much getting free labor for something, for an asset, which was worth nothing about a year and a half ago. Fast forward to today, Cicero still owns about 55 exclusive NIL properties. So these are name, image, likeness properties as it pertains to AI, so only for AI use cases. It's the largest portfolio of that type in the world. And actually, just a week and a half ago, some TikToker sold his AI avatar for like $1 billion.
So this is relating the David Rubin's report. Uh, I assume
Yeah,
it's
so we did this
related
for
to
Dave
that as
too.
well.
So we had like 60 plus partners at that point. We have sold a few, so we still own several of them, right? Because there's not a ton of liquidity in that market. But like for Dave Rubin, we did it like the famous the famous newscaster.
You basically created an AI clone of him for him to be sipping pina coladas in Hawaii, whilst apparently everyone thought he was in the newsroom reporting on
That
the
was
latest
nuts.
and
So
greatest.
Dave is a freaking he's a maverick. So he wanted to take off in August. Like every summer, he takes a month off in August and just goes fully dark. We said, okay, we're going to replace you with your AI twin. We're going to train on everything you have developed, and we're going to put it, effectively as Dave to manage the show while you're gone. So this was actually the first ever show. It was a cool fact, and maybe one day it'll be in my Wikipedia if I earn one. But it was the first ever nationally broadcast show hosted by an AI. Right. So we did that with Dave. We got a couple articles in the news, as you saw. We got tens of millions of views in the first week, and more, obviously with the remainder of the month. It was pretty crazy. Like we got to see what people were asking Dave's AI, and it was nuts. But I think it was a mild success. I wouldn't say a massive success, but it was a mild success.
Also, the technology we have nowadays is not the
Which
technology
is
we
crazy,
had
by the
6
way.
months ago.
Insane. Like really, like
Si-
the step change. Yeah.
Nano Banana 2.0 Pro was not a thing 6 months ago, and I'm pretty sure it would have made Dave Rubin's show just that much
And that's
better.
the
Also,
that's the bet, right? Like you own these properties in perpetuity, or at least for several years, and it was worthless when you had them, and it's worth a whole lot more every passing day. Yeah.
good bet. So Cicero, what's the stage of Cicero right now? Because you already spoke a little bit about
Mhm.
Othello. Is that kind of dormant, or is that something that you're actively working on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis?
So for Cicero, there's two ways to monetize, right? There's the asset value of the IP, and then there's the actual, effectively like what you do with the IP, right? And you can get cash flow from that. So we were getting, for about, like, I don't know, a few months, we were using Cicero to create, assets, things like AI chatbots, for example, the Dave Rubin clone, and we were getting paid for that. So we were doing that for a while. We realized, frankly, that the market is not really ready to spend millions and millions of dollars a month on this kind of thing. So we turned off all operations. We still own the actual assets themselves, the underlying IP, and we license them out on a case by case basis. So that is a nice, like, passive income, and I do think the asset value will grow. But all of my attention has been on Othello since the day we started. Yep.
Okay, makes sense. And what's Othello using? I One of the conversations I have frequently with some of my friends that are interested in tech is Gemini versus Claude versus GPT models. I think lately we've seen GPT models performing considerably worse. Last week we saw Claude Anthropic throw a dig at OpenAI. I don't know if you saw the uh, commercial they're gonna air during the game later today. Um, I want to just get your thoughts on who is on the forefront right now in
I
AI
think it's a
model
waste to
generation.
discuss. I think people spend so much breath talking about who's winning and who's losing, when we've seen time and time again that they will just leapfrog each other in perpetuity. Like, I don't know if a model has ever been the best model 2 releases in a row. Definitely not 3. I can say that with certainty. I don't think ever 2 releases in a row. So it's more important to find a partner that you can build with in the long term than switching out every month and a half, or go open source. You
I
disagree?
disagree. I agree that I agree that the startups that are just switching every month and a half are just wasting a shit ton of time on benchmarking on different models every now and then. Whenever the new one, whenever they manage to finish benchmarking in one, the latest of the other company launches. So on that note, I agree. I would say that Anthropic models for 2 releases in a row, if they actually release Claude Sonnet 5.0 this week, I'm I'm pretty sure they're
I
still
don't know. Like code
the best,
is
and they were the best even with
Codex is better than Cloud
4.5.
Code in almost every category. Like people like don't realize that. It's a little bit hard. Like the UX isn't as good, but the model quality is better, and it wins in most fingerboards. But like I think it's a use case by use case thing. I think what you're going to see is just like, I mean, most businesses and most commodities pan out. Like you have something that is 80% similar, but you lead in specific categories. For example, like Shell Oil, the same type of company as Exxon, but Shell really, really, really kills it with their lubricants division, right? Just like, for example, Claude has done really, really, really well with Claude Code. Even though I think Codex is better. Well,
And then what does Othello use?
no,
I
yeah,
don't
of
know if you
course.
can
Yeah, yeah.
speak
So we
to it.
use the GPT models primarily still. We can switch them out. It's pretty modular, so like it doesn't really matter. But the impact has been negligible. We rely heavily on our own infrastructure, such that the underlying LLM doesn't have like the massive impact that you'll see in like other startups. So we kind of just do whichever one we have a longer term relationship with. And frankly, the mini models are also pretty good for some use cases. And that's GPT owns that.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you have Haiku and Flash for on Anthropic's and Google's side of things, which are, I think, comparable to the mini models.
Yeah, the local models are
Mm,
going to be an interesting
but
place to
yeah.
play. Like I do think that I think it's called Gemma, which is the Gemini local alternative. Yeah, but I think I'm right there. I'm not sure. The local models is going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of attention given to local models the next year, for sure.
I I'm looking forward to see if that's true. I'm not entirely I'm not entirely certain that that's gonna be the case, but I'm eager to be proved wrong at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah, cool, cool.
So I also wanted to speak, and this is what we opened with. I think we got a bit carried away with other stuff. Um, for the listeners, a young person wants to grow and wants to increase their connections in the business world. Could you give your
Yeah.
framework to do that?
So I think you need to look. You like don't boil the ocean with this kind of thing. It's better to have a few people that you can learn a lot from than 1,000 people that you get the same kind of like bullshit platitudes from. So what I did, and I've done everything, right? So I've learned very much from failure in my life. But you identify maybe call it like 10 people that you really look up to. So these could be like business mentors. These could be, I mean, whatever you want. Find the best people in the category. Reach out to them. Like email, LinkedIn, cold. I cold called a billionaire yesterday. He picked up. It's like in the second ring, right? And I met with him. I met with
What
him
did
this
you
morning.
say?
Like 24-hour turnaround. It's pretty fucking good. Um, but like he was somebody that I really thought was super interesting. Like I actually really, really, really was interested in this guy. I was looking to read a biography about him. Turns out it didn't exist. So I called him, Nico, and I'm like, hey, first off, you need a freaking bio, right? Like you're goated, is what I said to him word for word. And then I explained why I wanted to talk to him, who I was, the value that I may be able to provide him, and at the very least, the value he'll provide me, which I can, pass over if anybody asks me for the same opportunity for some crazy reason. So a lot of these people know that there's not much you can give them except for paying it forward.
I think something very important is having a clear ask.
Yeah, no, I think 100%.
And I think some
I mean, a
people
clear, sorry to cut you off, but like, the thing I just realized is
just,
if you tell people, hey, like, I'd love to meet with you, what are some times that work? If you ask them a question, which is like an unclear ask, you're going to get a lower response rate. If you tell, say to somebody, hey, respond yes, and I will send over a calendar invite for Tuesday at 4 p.m., you will have like a 10% higher response rate, like from what I've seen.
yeah, 100%. And who are the most interesting people you've met like this?
I mean, like a lot. Like Sam Altman, CEOs of like 3 Fortune 10s. I don't know if I'd say the most interesting people. Like, I don't know if they're the most interesting people. The ones that I've gotten really close. Yeah, but like the
Relevant.
CEO of US Steel, for example, David Barrett I mean, that guy is incredible. Like, he is freaking incredible, such an inspiration. Like, has such a massive impact on my life, more than more than almost anybody. Um, you got to find people that mesh well with you, right? Like, look, of course, Elon Musk is like the most interesting man in the world, and he is, and I love the guy. But just because he's accomplished so much doesn't mean he's going to be the right guy to give you the advice you need.
Yeah, I like that insight. I think it's very relevant. You need to figure out who's the person you need to reach out to that's going to provide you the most value, not the person that has the most value
Of
to
course.
provide in general, just the person that's going to be able to answer the question
Yeah,
that you have.
100%. And look, think about it like this. Like, look, your time is valuable too. Like, don't go waste your time like networking for the sake of networking. There's always something to be had. Doesn't need to be short term. Doesn't mean we need to be transactional. But like, there is always a partnership, right? So don't just go and meet somebody for the sake of meeting them. Yeah,
What would you say? What would you say about the idea of don't meet your
that's bullshit.
heroes? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, like your
What's
heroes,
been your experience
like,
meeting these people?
I mean, they're lovely people generally. First off, like I've never met. I mean, maybe one guy who was like a big asshole. I actually like there was one guy who was a huge asshole, but effectively, like every hero I've ever had that I've met has been really pleasant.
And who are
Who
those?
are those? CEO of US Steel was a hero of mine for a long time, and now he's you know, my closest confidant now. The CEO of Costco was a hero of mine. I mean, I've looked up to him since I was like literally like in elementary school doing projects on them. He's now like one of the owners of my company. He has equity in my business. Um, I really looked up to Elon Musk, and I do know Elon Musk, and he is equally impressive in a one-on-one as he is on Twitter. So that's somebody that was pretty mind-boggling to be around.
How was meeting Jordan Peterson?
That's actually an interesting example of don't meet your heroes. He's a nice guy for sure, lovely guy, but he's an eccentric, and you need to be prepared for that. We had dinner, and this guy ordered 4 steaks. I've never, I've never seen that before. Um, and
But he has a very strict dietary
exactly.
meal. I think it's very particular
Yeah,
to
I
him.
had no idea. Lovely guy, but really eccentric. And a lot of these people are, by the way, like a lot of these people are like categorically weird people. And that's not a bad thing at all. Maybe that's what you need to succeed in some of these businesses.
I think it is. I think one of the questions that I struggle with most is obsession a requirement for success
100%.
or for excellence? Maybe not for success.
100%.
And and I think it is.
100%. I mean, everybody I've ever met
Are
I'm
you
obsessed.
obsessed?
I'm more than obsessed. I'm addicted, right? And it's like, that's like why success is so hard because it requires you to be obsessed. And obsession is not fun. Like obsession is not fun. It is all encompassing and it'll like eat your entire life. And balance is kind of what thrive
It
on.
means
And you can't have balance.
it it means it's harder to not do something than to do it. So it means all of the time you're resting or just taking it easy, you're suffering.
100%.
So it makes your life.
Yes.
And what are you most obsessed about?
To be honest, you need to meet people. You need to meet your life. Like you need, like where you are, right? Like you have to understand like the impact you can make, for example. Like if I believe that I was going to send people to Mars like Elon, I'd probably be assessed in that. I realize that the way I can have the greatest impact in the world is by saving thousands of jobs, is by making the million account executives in the United States better at what they do every single day. It is the highest, like more people lose jobs in enterprise sales than almost any job in like the entire corporate world. That's insane. So if I can save even 10% of these people jobs, I'm saving tens of millions of jobs a year, right? Like that's like more than like monetary policy actually does, right? So I'm obsessed with it solving that problem at least as well as we can.
So that's your purpose, you would say.
Yeah,
Your very altruistic purpose behind
of
Othello.
course. I mean, creating new job, like creating 10 million jobs a year or like 20 million jobs a year is a lot. Like from a like an America perspective, that's really impressive from like a national jobs report, right? Like actually like almost unbelievable in some like circumstances. AI is going to do that, I believe, at a faster pace than ever before, and we want to do it for the jobs that are most affected, the knowledge workers that are most affected specifically, which is salespeople.
I wanna just close out with one last question, uh, which is related to what your thoughts are on work-life balance. Are you a work hard, play hard person?
So I don't. I think you look. Work life balance is bullshit if you want to be the greatest. but not everybody's going to be or wants to be the greatest. Like, I think you need to understand that as a boss, right? Is that not everybody has the same objectives as you have. You need to understand that. But assuming somebody does have the same ambitions as me, for example, like, you have to understand that if you're going to compete, if you're in like a zero-sum environment, which most businesses are to some extent, you need to grind. Like, someone is going to work harder than you or work smarter than you. So the only way you can counteract that is by really being obsessive, and you can't have a work-life balance that way. Doesn't mean you can't like play hard. I mean, a night out is not going to ruin your week, especially if you're, like, being healthy. But you can't expect to like go home at 6 p.m. if you want to beat out hundreds of people for the same prize. That's laughable to me. It's risible.
I like that. It was very nice to have you, Jared.
Thanks,
Thank you so
brother.
much.
All right.